I believe it's on. Okay, welcome back to the Safe Podcast, people. This is, I think, our seventh episode. I'm joined today by, can you remind me how to pronounce your first name?
Of course, yeah. I'm Sean Killingsworth.
Oh, it's just Sean. Okay, I saw the accent mark on GroupMe and I didn't want to butcher it. But yeah, so Sean leads this student organization template, kind of, which has several chapters called Reconnect, the Reconnect Movement. Their website is thereconnectmovement.com, correct?
It's it is that'll still take you there, but it's
Ah,
recommitment.org now.
that's better. That's good.
Hmm.
It's more precise. But so basically, they have, I've been to some of the events at the UF chapter, phone free hangouts. So they're designed to be kind of more present than, I don't know, what Gen Z is used to, probably, where you're checking your phone every 5 minutes. So it's really immersive. They'll do springs, they'll go paint, all this fun, wholesome stuff that people need more than ever. So, why'd you start this club?
Yeah, so it all started originally when I was in high school, and I made a decision after kind of fighting my phone and fighting habits and use and really losing that fight a lot, deleting my apps, putting them back, wasting time, getting frustrated, trying to charge my phone out of my room, all these different kind of like ways to, get spend less time on my phone because I didn't enjoy, how much time I was spending. And so that led me to just end the battle completely and get a flip phone when I was a sophomore in high school, in my sophomore year. And I thought that was gonna like solve my problems with phone and everything. I was just, all good to go. And then when I went into school with no smartphone, no social media, I experienced, what I call the social wasteland, where everyone that I was trying to actually talk to was completely sucked into their phone almost constantly. And if I did interact with them, then they would expect for me to have social media and a smartphone. So it's very difficult for me to make any social connections with only having a flip phone. So then I realized like, oh, no matter what I do with my own personal decisions on how much I use my phone, I'm still trapped in this wasteland of everybody using social media as their primary form of connection, which the whole reason I got my flip phone is I don't enjoy that. But now my entire environment, my social environment is calling me to use a smartphone that I don't have. So I found myself to be very isolated. And so Reconnect came out of me feeling like there was no option. And so that felt unfair to me. It's like, okay, I either have my smartphone and I'm isolated and, wasting all my time and getting anxious and all this stuff that I avoided, or I get rid of it and now I'm isolated in this social wasteland filled with people only using their phones. That felt unfair to me. And so I created Reconnect as a space where anybody, whether you have an iPhone, flip phone, whatever, can come and hang out in a space that is phone free, kind of escaping this wasteland.
Yeah, that's a good solution. You handled that better than many of us do. But so everyone knows, I think everyone has at least a vague idea of the objective, scientifically proven problems with using phones and specifically social media. But what was it for you? Why did you want to get rid of your phone at all? Like what were the key things that you were like, this sucks. I'd be better off without it.
Yeah. So it kind of boiled down to it was impeding my abilities to just enjoy my day-to-day experience of life. Because, there's many different things. It's like you're constantly inundated with notifications. You constantly have a task that you could be doing, whether it's email, responding to something or looking something up. There's always something you could be doing. There is the pull of social media, the pull of addictive substance like apps on your phone. And so all those things culminate in taking up your subconscious space, this space in your mind. And so what I realized was that even if I was trying to manage how much I was using my apps, trying to lower my notifications, or trying to leave my phone in another room, even when I was doing all of those things, it was my phone was still taking up space in my mind, thinking about trying not to use it. And so that was the main thing that was so frustrating to me that felt unfair. So that's why I got my flip phone, and that's why Reconnect is designed in the way that it is. Because if you completely valet your phone, because sometimes people, when they originally come, they're like, oh, cool, no phones, I'll keep my phone in my pocket. But no, it's designed where we valet your phone at the beginning of the event. So it's like your ticket to enter is your phone. as you're aware, you've been to events, and then you get a ticket in return for your phone, then you check it out at the end, or if you need to use it. And that's designed that way because it allows for you to completely let it out of your mind, at least in spurts. Oftentimes, people who use their phone at maybe their first Reconnect event, it'll come back to them, it'll ping them, but that's oftentimes much different when you don't have it on your person at all. And so that was the ultimate reason I decided to get rid of my phone was the mental space it was taking up against my will or my, desire for it to be taking up that space.
Got it. So it was like a presence thing. You want to be more present. Yeah, heard. So when you valet people's phones, I've always been curious about this. Has anyone ever responded about like has anyone started to tweak and get like nervous about it, or did they usually know right away like this is something I need, you know?
I've had, mixed responses throughout running the club. I've had people where they show up with a friend and or so this was one example. We were hosting an event and someone who was attending the Reconnect event who had seen the group chat and was planning to attend ran into two friends as he was walking to the Reconnect event, and the two friends weren't familiar with Reconnect or anything. And so they kind of walked with him and he's like, I'm going to an event. They were like, cool. So they showed up. So it's three of them, this guy and these two girls. And the guy was like, when I go up to them, I'm like, all right, time to valet your phones, blah, blah, blah. The guy was like, cool. And then the two girls were like, I'm not doing that. And they walked away and left. They didn't go to the event. They were just like, I'm not down for that. It was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's happened a couple of times where people are just like, "Oh, I'm not up for that." And that's but most of the time the people who are attracted to the club are really excited to have the opportunity to put their phone away.
Yeah. Cool. So how does the space feel different when people have no phones? Are people how like can you feel the difference in the attention spans? Are people getting longer sentences out without being interrupted? Stuff like that, you think?
Well, I can totally answer this, but I'd actually be curious to what your experience has been being in Reconnect events in the space of a phone-free space.
Yeah.
Do you notice any differences?
My favorite thing was I love the no pictures because not everyone's like this, but some people love to take pictures of everything, and they're kind of basically they're like, I'm gonna enjoy this later. I can't wait to go enjoy this when I'm on my phone going through my gallery. They have to enjoy it right then. As far as the actual conversation goes, I do think you can tell. I mean, it's subtle. It's not like people who are have fruit fly attention spans are turning into philosophers immediately, but it does make a difference to not like and it makes people feel more interested in you. You know how disinterested it feels when like especially probably when you had a flip phone, like when people pull out their phone mid conversation, they go on Instagram for a few minutes, and you just have to like sit and wait until you're not talking to 50% of a person again, right?
Yep,
So
totally.
yeah, so I noticed the difference, which is why I brought it up.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I would definitely build upon that. I think that one of the things I experience differently is the momentum that is possible for a group of people to build when they're spending time together with no phones. Because what you described of that experience of being in the middle of telling a story to someone or being in the middle of telling a joke or even just having a conversation and then someone just goes on their phone, starts scrolling on Instagram and completely, first of all, I'm hurt all immediately because they chose to I'm not interesting enough, or I feel, personally my feelings are kind of hurt. And then
yeah,
on top of that, now I'm a little embarrassed because I'm talking to someone who's not listening to me, so I look like an idiot. And then that's like creating all these barriers and strife and confusion. And then the person puts their phone down, then expects you to just be all good and like nothing ever happened. And so I think that all of those little things that are happening so think about it, a space of 20 people, how often is that happening? Probably pretty frequently amongst all of these conversations going on. So that's having a huge dampening effect on the social space and the social environment and how people feel when they're interacting and connecting. And so I think that when there's a big group of people, when I've gone on long hikes, like 3 hour, 4 hour hikes with a group of people for Reconnect, the momentum of connection that we all feel at the end of it, we all feel like we're on the same wavelength. And that feels very unique for Gen Z, I think, because we're so used to having to be completely like thrown off halfway through like all our social interactions. And I think that's one of the big differences that exist among many things that are difficult to point out, but um that's one of my favorite things that I observe and experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing I want to mention that another benefit I think you'll experience, like you guys are tight in that group. Like so, both Safe, this podcast I'm talking from, and Reconnect have UF in-person chapters where we get clubs of people, and it is so tough for a student organization to build cohesion outside of like the weekly events. But I see in the group me like people are like going and studying together all the time and all this stuff. So I wonder if the no phones thing and just having to be there just to be around those people, like with nothing else to do but the activity and the people. Like, I wonder if that's having a legitimate difference. This is making me want to consider like, phone free or phone reduced events in the future. But it's a great idea, man.
Yeah, no, I think that I have some theories of, like I said, there's when you're taking phones out of a space, what you're doing and so I use the analogy of the wasteland, which is, it's kind of killing the life of socializing in the wasteland when you're, having these things constantly present and constantly disconnecting and, kind of losing all this momentum, like kind of some of the things we've mentioned. And then the goal of creating a phone-free space isn't necessarily to like engineer the perfect thing that has all of these specific design features. I mean, there's certain things where I've definitely set it up to create certain things, but what I mean by setting it up is like I'm really just pushing back the wasteland and allowing what natural for human life and for human socializing that has existed for millions and millions and millions of years, or wait, not millions, thousands. Anyways, where it's natural for us to socialize literally all up until what 2007 the iPhone came out, and then 2012 was when the iPhone and Facebook were came out together. And
Yeah.
so this is like 13 years max this has even been around. Everything before that was normal for humans to be socializing the way that we did, which was uninterrupted in this way. And so really the goal is just like, guys, this is what we're meant to do. This is what we're designed to do. So it's just creating a space where we can do what naturally is going to come to us. So I
Right.
think when you point out something like that, where there's more activity in the group me, there's more people willing to reach out, there's more people feeling connected, even after the events. I think that I would attribute that to the fact that they might not be aware of it, but they're having an actually much more natural human connection experience that makes them feel safer, more connected, more, more nourished by human connection, because human connection is actually a need like eating, not like, a pleasure activity. And so they are now having this like all of a sudden such a nourishing, unique experience. And so that can have a more long-lasting effect on what they are feeling going forward. So like those little things, there's a lot of little things they're experiencing that I might not even be able to point out, because that would be me trying to analyze how, natural human connection works, which is like it's like if you took an ecosystem, put in an invasive species, all of a sudden everything's dead in 2 months. You're like, whoa, that's crazy. This snake ate all, like, there's no more natural birds, whatever. But then there's extra work to go in and analyze what exactly it killed, how it messed up the ecosystem, and take all the snakes out. Life's going to start popping back up and being more natural and balanced, but you're also going to have to do extra work of analyzing, okay, well, what exactly were the species? But you can identify the invasive thing that's kind of like messing it up. So that is how I see this, and that's why I use the analogy of the wasteland and the oasis for, a phone-free space is an oasis. That's a place where natural life, socializing can exist, and the wasteland is where there's this invasive species that's not allowing for social ecosystems to thrive.
Hmm. Do you think that phones are well? I'm sure I would agree if you do believe that phones are the primary culprit. But do you think there's other inventions that maybe we shouldn't have that are really messing up our social cohesion?
Well, I think I would want to reframe the question a little bit, because, it's not that we shouldn't have it.
Okay.
It's not that we shouldn't have phones or social media. It's just that, you know, the snake that was put in the invasive environment can exist where it's from, but when it's put into this environment where it doesn't belong, all of a sudden it's destroying the entire ecosystem. So
Okay.
that's how I view phones and social media is phones and social media. Phones definitely have a place. Smartphones definitely have a in society and life and the advancement of the humanity. It has incredible tools at our fingertips. And that being brought into a social space all of a sudden is completely, burning down this ecosystem of socializing. And so
Hmm.
I think what we will come to realize as a society is this is an incredible tool, but it doesn't belong in this space, social spaces. And then as far as social media, I believe social media is probably will find a place, but I think it'll be more like porn in the future. We'll look at social media like insecurity porn or something, where it's like, social media, and this is I'm totally stealing this from my friend Nick Plant too, so look him up. But he calls social media porn, and I think that's a really kind of astute observation because it's almost like going into this primal need for validation, for seeing what other people are doing, for gossip, for all this type of stuff, but it's activating it a completely unnatural way and in a way that's not actually productive for our social life. It's just kind of like, you know, pinging this dopamine center in our brain that kind of is related to socializing. And yes, people have found connection in social media. I'm not denying that. So that's why I mean there's some place for it, but I think it'll look different in the future because right now it's like, oh, hey, you can DM people, but we're gonna have like literally, it's like those videos where it has like Subway Surfers and then it's like some guy talking on a
Yes. Yeah.
podcast. That's what social media is. It's like, oh, you can talk to people through instant messaging, but we're gonna just have like porn, socializing porn, like right underneath your chat bot, which is like all the addictive, kind of like entertainment features and addictive, kind of taking advantage of your socializing part of your brain, like showing you, like your ex and boyfriend right at the first post because they know that you can't help but look at that, all that type of stuff where it's like, is that really helping me? Is that really helping anyone? Is it helping society? No, it's like this thing that we can't help but look at. But anyway, so that's how I would look at it when it comes to technology. I know I didn't really answer your question there, but that's why I want to reframe it. Like, it's not that these things are inherently bad or
Yeah.
that they're like wrong for society. It's just that they haven't found their correct place yet. They're in every place, and that's completely ruining certain places like social spaces. So that's why I would say, like, I don't think they necessarily belong in social spaces, and I think in the future they won't be as prevalent in social spaces. There'll be a lot more phone-free spaces. But I think they do have a place.
Sure. So with the analogy to porn, do you mean it's similar to porn in that like it's this new phenomenon that obviously is super salient, it's super enjoyable, but like we slowly realize, okay, maybe porn all the time isn't that good. You think like social media is following a similar pattern of people realizing in the long run it's kind of bigwas or whatever that word is. I've always wanted to use it. Like it's kind of bullshit. And it's just yeah, like can you dive into that comparison a little more? Because porn seems
Yeah.
a little more or less useful, at least to me, than social media.
Um, yeah. So I think that to continue forward with the analogy,
Mm-hmm.
why is social media completely like you've had the experience where it's like why does it grab us the way that it does in this almost unhealthy way where I feel so deeply about it I want to get a flip phone and like do what nobody else is doing, like why would I want to do that? It's because I'm sure to, dig into the psychology, dig into your brainstem and addict you through, many different features. But I think the main analogy I see with porn is we have a need for sex, and that's exploited through porn.
Ah,
And we have a need for social connection, and that's being exploited by social media. But porn doesn't bring you a child. It doesn't, reproduce it doesn't play on any of the actual correct intentions of that natural function. You're not connecting with anyone, you're not creating a partner, you're not producing offspring. Someone's just getting you to be on their website and waste your time, and that's going to release dopamine and get you addicted to it. Social media is there's a natural need for community, social connection. That is like tribal. If your tribe doesn't approve of you, you're going to die. If you don't produce your offspring, your species is going to die. It's kind of a similar thing. So it's playing on these natural needs in humans, but it's just turning it all the way up to all the dopamine releasing ones and then not giving you any of the benefits of what the real thing is. And then now you're stuck looking at this thing that's like poking this part in your brain, giving you feel good chemicals, but it's like it's almost like sugary foods as well, It's like it's pinging the dopamine center for like, oh, this is a sugary high calorie food. This is good when you're running around the wilderness and you can't find any food. But when you weaponize that for like candy bars, it's not good for you. So it's kind of like the same thing. And now candy bars are bad for you, but they didn't always know that. So it's like kind of we're in a similar thing 'cause it's so brand new. Literally 13 years. Our society has only had 13 years to digest and figure out where this belongs. That's how I would compare it to porn or sugary food like that.
Yeah. And it's funny that you brought up the sugary food thing because in the Anxious Generation, this book that I'm sure you've heard of because it's so you've talked to Jonathan Haidt, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah. I work with their
a little
team,
bit.
and we're actually doing I mean, total shameless plug here, but I'm working with the Anxious Generation and with the Truth Initiative and Abstinence to do a Reconnect campaign to spread Reconnect to more college campuses around the country. So look out for that. The Anxious Generation is going to be, probably be on their socials or their stuff in the future, but yeah, we work with them.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that book was like a game changer for me personally. But I remember they made the direct comparison, not to junk food, but to tobacco companies, like how Meta is kind of like a tobacco company in their suppression of anything that comes out speaking against it, their insistence that it's like overall for good and it's well intentioned. And yeah, like just the predatory behavior of the social media companies is similar to things that we now know are not good for you, like tobacco. So
Mhm.
yeah, sometimes I guess we have to think one step ahead of what companies are willing to admit about themselves and make decisions about the role we want their product to have in our lives for ourselves. Um, that's so cool that you're connecting with Jonathan Haidt. I've read like several of his books. Like, anyways, super cool.
He's a genius. He's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and he's not afraid to speak his mind about anything, which is
Yeah.
really respectable.
Needed right now.
Yeah. What else have you learned in this role? What keeps
Of
you
founding
excited
of
about
founding Reconnect.
it? Yeah.
I've learned a lot of the things that I'm sharing with you today. It all started, like I said, with me just getting, stuck in this unfair situation where I was seeing that I wasn't able to socialize in a healthy social environment, and there was no healthy social environment available to me. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna make one. And so now through making them and I've learned a lot about, you know, the history of how they broke down, what they will look like in the future, how our current social environments look like while they're broken down. Like, my analogy of the savannah, the wasteland, and the oasis. Um, so I've learned a lot about what this problem actually is and how it is we're actually going to solve this problem and get out of here and get out of the position that we're in. Um, so I would say that would be the biggest thing is I've identified what some of the root issues are here, that when we figure these things out, all the other things will start to seem a lot easier.
Okay. Yeah. How is your current relationship with your phone now that you're not on a flip? Do you valet your friends' phones when you go to the bar, or how does that work?
I have valeted my friends' phones at the bar. Like when I had my on my 21st birthday, I made everybody put their phones into yonder pouches. And I had some people that were pretty pissed about it. Uh, yeah, and whenever I have people over to my house, I have a phone valet to my like when you walk in, there's a little shelf for like shoes and stuff, and I have
Yeah.
a little tray in that closet, little like fake candles next to it, it's like phone valet. So whenever I have people over, we're doing like a movie night, game night, dinner, all people always valet their phones. Um, and me personally, I actually made the switch back to a flip phone on Saturday. I'm super, super excited about it. I've been really enjoying it. Um, and so, I mean, that's kind of also most of the people that I am friends with now they know what I do and they know who I am, so they know how to interact with me and my phone. And like the fact that I have a flip phone, they're like, okay, yeah, I get it. This dude is like the flip phone guy or whatever. Or they're like, oh, I'll put my phone away. This guy's like the no phones guy. So they kind of like back in high school, I got made fun of a lot more than I do now. Is what I'm trying to say. People like kind of get it and respect it a little more now. At least in my like friendship circle, you know. So I would say that's kind of where my personal interaction with phones is at.
Yeah, that's so funny, dude. Because on Saturday, I got this bad boy as well. Same
No
crazy,
way,
absolutely
dude.
ridiculous.
That's amazing. Same day.
Yeah, man. Some was in the air that Saturday, I guess.
That's awesome. What made you get your flip phone?
Probably the exact same reasons. I also I have a disdain for texting, and this it really discourages you from texting when you have to go 1, 2, 3, A, C,
Yeah.
F
Yeah.
to spell every single thing. So yeah, I like that it forces me to call my friends, and they have to
Mhm.
call me, and then we can hear our voices, and then the conversation is 10% better. But I was already very opposed to social media and stuff, so it hasn't been a huge sacrifice, but it's
Yeah.
kind of just I don't know. It forces me into having a better relationship with technology. So
Cool.
I'm a fan of it. I've
I
used
like
it
it.
for a while, but yeah. So you alluded to this already, but I'm wondering. So if you were the god of the universe and you were looking at this digital era of history from 1,000 years in the future or whatever, would you delete the 2012, popularization of smartphones or the unveiling of the iPhone? Would you just remove that from history, or do you think it's a net positive?
I think that it was original. So to short answer, no, I wouldn't.
Mhm.
Um, and I think short answer, not no, now into the long answer. I think originally it was a positive. And I think it was designed to be a positive. I believe the hardware of the iPhone was designed to benefit humanity. And I think that that intention was there. I think I have less faith in the intention behind social media. But I think that the production of smartphones has definitely added in a new playing field. I think literally everything comes with pros and cons. Um, there are definitely cons that have emerged more and more from the adoption of you know, phones and social media and all that stuff, but I don't really look at it that way. I mean, if I was the god of the universe, that'd be a really hard job and I'd probably be more equipped to it if I was actually the god of the universe, but my human brain, I have no idea how to manage the way that life unfolds. And to me, the way I observe life unfolding is you can't connect the dots going forward. Credit to Steve Jobs. And so when something like that's introduced, when something like the automobile was invented and everybody's dying when they get into car accidents and the people are no one knows how to cross the street and there's no stoplights, so everyone's getting run over, all this shit. Like that's you could argue at that time. I'm sure there were people like, get rid of the automobile, you know? But no, humanity eventually figured it out. This is a net positive invention. This is going to help us get travel, but we're going to invent stoplights, we're going to invent seatbelts, we're going to invent safety features, we're going to invent all this stuff. And that all happened over like 100 years. And now here we are, over 100 years later, you know, looking back like, oh, wow, what do you mean we shouldn't have cars, you know? So I think that it's like more like that, where there's a natural progression of the way that life unfolds and the way that advancement unfolds, which is, whoa, this product and this invention is creating things that are positive enough to where it's still around. The it decides based on what is actually worthy of use. And if the iPhone wasn't like doing, at least something or serving some kind of need, it would have gone away. That's not a perfect analogy because there's things in the market that are not good that are still operating. But what I'm trying to say is that invention needs time to, assimilate into the society and into how we use it. And like I said before, it's only been 13 years. It's been, I don't know, what is that, 18 years or 17 years since 2007? But it's it's only been, yeah, 13 since social media and smartphone. So it's kind of like if I was God of the universe, like I said, I don't think I'd be cut out for the job. I just I think with my perspective, because I see like, okay, I know what we need to change to make this technology more beneficial and more positive. Because once we figure this out, we'll be in such better harmony with our technology, it will become a net positive again. Because it was like, oh wow, this is great. Holy shit, this is causing a lot of problems. And then now that we're like, okay, trudging through the problems, we'll fix those, and then we'll be like, oh, this is great again. That's kind of what I see happening.
Yeah. Okay, so this time you're not the god of the universe. You're just a legislator. So you're just the god of some area. And what do you think is the most important guardrail that you would sign into legislation if you could? What do you think we should be prioritizing?
Phone-free social spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, um, I think that if I could wave a wand, I'd make certain parks in the city phone free. Um, and I would want, inventors and venture capitalists and entrepreneurs to come up with ways to make that actually facilitatable. And we need phone free spaces. We need phone free places to socialize. And I'm doing my part in creating those. I'm kind of dancing alone a little bit right now. But I think in the future, once, it becomes more apparent the potential success of these spaces, I think they'll start popping up everywhere. But that's the focus we need to be on is phone-free social spaces.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a number two?
Like what else I would do?
Yeah.
Hmm. I haven't really thought about that.
Hmm.
Because this is, when you're like really stressed out and like anxious and like angry, and then you realize I haven't eaten today, and you
Yeah.
go get a Chipotle bowl, and you're like, wow, all of a sudden I'm not anxious or angry anymore. I think for this problem, all the depression, anxiety, isolation, I think once we implement phone-free social spaces into everybody's regular life, I think that a lot of these problems we're going to realize like, oh, we were all completely void of real natural social connection. No wonder we were so depressed, isolated, and anxious. No wonder we were so stressed out all the time. So I haven't really looked past it because I know that this is one of the main root causes of all these problems that are popping up, from social media and phones that people are attributing to social media and phones. They don't realize it's the environment. So that's why I pushed the Savannah Wasteland Oasis analogy to try to get people to see that it's not our phone use, it's the environments that have been created by our phone use. So I don't know that I really have an answer for that. But if you want me to really try to think of one, I can do that.
Um, I mean, no, that's fair. I understand that you kind of think there could be this domino effect, and I would agree, by the way, because a phone isn't just a phone. You're right. It's changing the way you're thinking. It's really an attitude that we have of constantly. It's this escapist attitude we have. So if we're not like actively locked in, like so many people, 9 to 5, they're absolutely tapped in, and then they go home, and then they just think about something other than what they're doing. Like it's this work hard, play hard thing has been stretched so far. It's like experience reality for some circumscribed part of our day and then just go off into a video game or an Instagram Reels rabbit hole or something like that.
That's
So
so good.
yeah, so I can see why this is so important to you for sure. I think it's a good goal. Um,
Cool. Yeah, I like that observation, by the way. It's super true. It's like our only options right now are with our free time is like, okay, let me just go into a virtual world because, and I think that how I would, describe your feeling. Why do you feel that way? Why are you deducing? It's because you can feel that we're living in a wasteland, and I don't necessarily think you are necessary, you are more aware, but like you're saying, you're feeling that about like the general population. That's what they're experiencing. It's because the general world can feel the wasteland. And so they're like, well, that's not an option. But if they had an oasis to go to, a phone-free bar, a phone-free, place to hang out, that would be a real option for them to be like, oh, I don't have to escape into video games and social media. I can go out to this thing that's actually sustainable. I'm not going to get photographed and I'm not going to, have to deal with people not even paying attention to me and being distracted the whole time. And I can actually go enjoy myself out in the world. That is what is pushing everybody into their little virtual worlds because the real world is not inhabitable right now. And so creating these oases is a way to make inhabitable spaces for people to exist socially and enjoy themselves out in the actual real world.
yeah. So I want to look at this phone use thing with a little more granularity. I'm currently, like I mentioned, I'm currently doing a preliminary study of social media use. I'm trying to really dive into the effects that social media addiction is having on people's brains and behavior. And there isn't a whole lot of work done that parses out different types of social media use because it's so gosh darn hard to know why people are using their phones in general. I mean, you can look at your own screen time app, but people usually can't accurately report how much time they're scrolling reels, how much it was on their GPS app, which is arguably a much better use of phones. Like GPS, camera, these are things that we can live with. Um, so all of this said, I want to break this down into, what aspects. I'm sure you don't have any beef with calculators. What aspects of a phone do you think are the most harmful and that people should seek to regulate their use of the most?
Well, first of all, I would say, it's a really good point you made about how the current tools used to track screen time are way too, archaic. They are not, equipped for the level of screen time, navigation we need. And I just want to shout out my one of my coworkers, Kendall Schro, who I work with at Design It For Us, which is like a youth advocacy group for creating better social media platforms, advocating for better laws that protect, digital citizens. And she is working on with one of our other coworkers, Nathan, to create a bill that would require that same kind of like tracking that you see on your iPhone of screen time to require a spreadsheet of like all screen time of all time. That way you could like download that and look at all your screen time versus it only allows you to see 2 weeks and it disappears. So allowing you to track that. And like you said, that doesn't sparse out, what I spent on maps as well, or whatever it is. I mean, I think it does, but it's just too crude of a tool. So we're working on trying to get legislation created to, make those tools more equipped to actually handle the constant inundation with managing our screen time we have to deal with. So I just wanted to do that shout out first. But
Yeah.
as far as, creating or deciding what is most harmful, what's most productive, that was kind of the question, right?
Yeah.
Of applications or uses of your phone. I think it's all about, I'm going to bring it back to environments. I think that certain tools can be harmful in certain environments. For example, checking my bank statement while I'm out and I need to look at where my money's going, or I need to check if I can make this purchase or whatever is helpful. But when I'm in the middle of talking to someone and I'm doing that, it's not helpful and it's hurtful. So I think that is another way to look at this that I would always stick to, where it's like I don't really personally, it usually is like I don't care what's harmful. It's about when you're using everything. But if I were to say, I think the usual suspects are, I think social media is harmful because the comparison I made, it's predatory to our desire for socializing because it's taking advantage of us. Porn, and I think that um, those are the most predatory I can think of. And I think any app that is, using it, any app that exists in the attention economy is inherently harmful because they're all fighting to take your attention. Um, and but it's just a trade-off. So, like I said, it's not always harmful. It's just like kind of designed to be harmful because it's trying to take your time. But I think that it's specifically what I would focus in on is apps that participate in the attention economy, which is almost everything has to be in the attention economy now because of
Survive.
what we're inundated with, even people, which is, that's why I feel offended when someone's going for their phone, but can you really blame them? I mean, they've got this thing that's completely designed to hack your psychology to win the attention economy against the biggest businesses in the world. Me telling you about my morning, eating Popeyes is going to compete with that. Like, so I think that the attention economy is the thing that I would hone in on as the most harmful piece of technology. So anything that kind of disseminates from that.
Cool. And you said this a minute ago, but I just want to say it's super cool that you're dipping your toes into like policy stuff, you and your colleagues. That's freaking awesome. And I
Yeah, man.
think I think this is one of those rare areas where policy might actually be the best route. So, like, Australia, I don't know if you heard, but what was it? They made it such that you have to verify that you are older than 16 to create any social media account,
Mhm.
which, and I think there's been some success with it already, or at least some preliminary evidence that it's working. So that's dope, man. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, I mean, some of my colleagues that design it for us would disagree with me. My stance is should be a way for or it should be on the app stores to treat it like a shop front of a corner store and cigarettes, where they have to check the ID at the door of whoever's coming in and downloading or purchasing their products.
Yeah.
And I think it should be on Apple. I think it should be on Google Play Store. I think it should be on the merchants that are bringing the apps to the population. But that's hard to look at right now, and difficult to see how it would be implemented when it comes to policy. Like I said, can't connect the dots going forward, to quote Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, and they just started, at least in Florida and maybe a couple other states, they started making you do that with porn sites.
Yeah.
So you have to like actually, but type in your driver's license number. I don't know, something ridiculous, or something not really ridiculous, but something where it's not just checking a box saying I'm above the age of 18. It's a step in the right
Yeah,
direction. So I can see
for
that
sure.
realistically happening for social media sites as research continues to prove time and time again that, it's having some deleterious effects on our world. Um,
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah, man. What are your long-term goals? Like for real, for Reconnect? Do you want a chapter at every college in the US? What is it?
Well, I think the the goal for Reconnect specifically is based on college campuses currently. I think it will most likely spread to cities as well once Gen Z starts graduating from college. But right now, I think the goal would be, yeah, definitely to have a chapter at, every college in the world, in the country, because, students deserve the opportunity to have a phone-free social space. Same way students deserve the opportunity to, be in a smoke-free social space.
Sure.
We take that for granted now, but in the 70s and 80s, in order to go get dinner, you had to be breathing cancer-causing smoke.
Right.
And so I think that the goal is to give students the opportunity to not have to be constantly socializing in an environment that is a wasteland that is completely killing all their opportunity to have human social connection. That is so unfair. And so I think that would be the first goal. And then the goal, I think, would be to activate those clubs and be able to have those clubs advocate for phone-free spaces designated for phone-free areas on their campus. So phone-free floor of their library, phone-free room in their cafeteria, phone-free social clubs around campus, things like that, to make this ubiquitous thing in society, same way smoke-free spaces are. I have other but that's the main thing that I see as the work of my life. That'll probably take, good 30, 40 years well, I mean, I guess you can't predict, but that'll probably take at least 20 years to make that happen. So that's kind of what I see my life's work going into.
Cool. This is totally random, but I was looking at some Italian brain rot today, and you just can't help when you look at these types of things. You can't help but get the intuition that this is making us dumber. And I've actually heard even some people who have dipped their toes into some research that people have the opinion that this new brain rot, this hyper strange and hyper like stimulating type of meme is especially harmful. Do you have any hot takes about brain rot? This has just been on my mind, not relevant to the interview.
Man, you know what? I'm probably behind on what brain rot is. I mean,
Oh,
so let me hit you with what I think it is, and you tell me, correct me. So it's like reels that are just like so dopamine releasing or so weirdly itching your brain that you just like can't help but scroll on that. It's like that thing, it's just like itching your brain. That like what you described as. Am I correct there?
yeah, and like that Subway Surfer type of video you were talking about earlier, or it's often involving AI generated content these days.
Mhm.
It's just absolute bullshit with no redeeming qualities at all.
Right. Okay. I think that like so the question is like how is that negatively affecting us?
Yeah, I guess I should even to make it a little bit better of a question. How do you think the direction content is moving is making social media apps even more pernicious than before? Toward these short, hyper stimulating videos. You think, yeah.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I think it's definitely being led. I would say, okay, you could say it's the content, but I don't think so. I think it's the positioning of the companies. Because first of all, Reels didn't exist until TikTok. TikTok invented Reels. And so TikTok created an environment within the attention the thing that's most rewarded is brain rot.
Hmm.
And so I think that, same way, YouTube, Instagram, well, mainly Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all reward the most, depressing, the most enraging, the most unreasonable people and ideas. That's what gets pushed because that's what gets the most attention. I think those environments are what we should be focusing on and what we should be blaming, and the attention economy as a whole, because creators are making money and taking up a role in society that is now offered, and that is just what is fitting in the market right now. I would focus on like the company that is making that an option. And I do think that you are onto something with the form of content that's being produced is creating this much more addicting thing, but I wouldn't blame the content. I would blame the platforms.
Gotcha. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I often like to end these with like a pragmatic you can do this right now type of note. So if someone came to you and was like, I need a detox for my phone, what do you usually recommend? And how would you suggest they approach it? A duration, just deleting a couple of apps, getting a flip phone. What do you think works the best? You've probably seen some experimentation with that.
Hmm. Well, I think, you know, when it comes to, here's what I wish I could tell people, right? This is what I would say. Go to an Oasis, go to a phone-free event. That's what I want to be able to say. But
Mhm.
there aren't Reconnect clubs on every campus yet. There aren't Oases in every city yet. And so what's the next best thing is, you know, become more aware of the world around you. See the wasteland. Leave your phone at home for a day, and not with the shame in intention of shame and the intention of, oh, I'm spending so much time on my phone. I should be spending less time on my phone, so I'm going to leave my phone and I'm going to punish myself to, like, make sure I'm having better habits. Like, don't do that, but leave your phone at home with the intention of seeing the wasteland. See everyone around you and think about trying to go up and talking to them and feel how impossible that feels and feel how, trapped that is and feel how, limited that can be. Or maybe you'll run into a two-step verification. You can't even go to your class or whatever it is. Things like that. I think that that's what I would, and maybe it's not a whole day because you have to go to class and you have to do two-step verification to sign into your school class, whatever it is. But maybe it's, on an evening or a weekend or noon or after you finish all your classes, leave your phone and go walk around or something. And I would say see the wasteland, because once you see it and you process it, if you've listened to this podcast and you kind of can make the shift from phone habits to environments, and then I personally wasn't able to unsee it after I saw it. So I would encourage you to try to create that for yourself and be able to not be able to unsee the wasteland. Then that'll get you thinking like, okay, well, how can I get out of the wasteland? And then I give you the advice, because maybe you don't have a Reconnect club at your school. Well, if you go to UF, just go to Reconnect, because I know there's probably going to be a lot of listeners from UF. But if not, I would say create the closest that you can to around you. So, go to your friends, and you'd be surprised how many will listen and say, "Hey guys, like, I don't enjoy it. I don't like it when we're all on our phones when we're together. Like, can we not be on our phones when we're together?" Throw that out as a feeler. That can be pretty scary because everybody's on their phones so much. People can be offended. I ran into that a lot. But that'll be very telling. Be telling of who in your group is open to it, who is not. Because there's some people that feel really strongly who will say like, "Hell no, man. What are you trying to ask of me?" And they'll get pissed at you. And there's some people who are like, "Wow, that's a really good point. Let's do it." And so I think if you really care about this, start shaping your social world around people who are up for that, who you can tell them, "Hey man, let's reconnect right now. Like, can you put your phone away? Can we just do this together?" And even though it's not perfect and it's not a perfect phone-free space, at least you can now find yourself in an environment where you're capable of requesting that someone politely put their phone away when you're trying to connect with them. Because that's not given in our generation. In adults, they can say, "Put your phone away, man. What the hell?" And that's no big deal because they're like, "Yeah, you're right. I should put my phone away." In our
Right.
generation, that's not that same way. So I would say try to create that environment and culture within your friend group. And then from there, you can play around with, lowering your use, getting a flip phone, doing all that. But that's a whole other conversation. And that can be challenging, and there's really no right answer there. It's just kind of hard getting a flip phone when you're first doing it. So yeah, that would be my best advice there for someone that wants to change their experience.
Yeah, so to synthesize and make sure I got it, first kind of be real with yourself about your phone, your digital, your digital time. Try to notice if it's making you uncomfortable, sit in that feeling, don't lie to yourself about it, and then try to start making like little baby steps in the direction of, telling one friend that you'd like to have a phone-free dinner or something like that, and then just see where it takes you.
Actually, no.
Okay.
No, it's not quite what I meant. So rather than so reframing it from analyzing, getting real with yourself about how you're using your phone, that's not what I'm asking people to do. What I'm
Okay.
asking people to do is to leave your phone at home. Forget about your phone use. Your phone use isn't in your control. You're living in a wasteland that's constantly requiring you to use your phone. It's not your fault. Don't shame yourself for that. Put your phone at home and go observe the wasteland. Get real with yourself about the environments you're finding yourself in. And that's a hard shift for people to make because you have to face the fact that it's very difficult to socialize out in this wasteland world. So that would be that's what I mean. Does that make sense? So what are
Yes.
you hearing me say?
Yeah. So it's like feel the problem. Don't just think about the problem, but allow yourself to feel the problem by actually trying to live life without a phone so you can see the pervasiveness of phones everywhere around you.
Yeah, that's definitely essentially the point. And shame yourself while you're doing it. Just kind of observe the world and educate yourself on, I would ask, like, if you did put your phone away, what would your life have to be like? And that answer to that question can be really telling because most I would assume and I would predict most people are gonna be like, oh, I can't do that. That's impossible. But actually think about why is it impossible? And one of the reasons that I've centered in on, which, like I said, is like eating a meal when you're stressed out and hungry, that's the solution, is that there's absolutely it's oftentimes uninhabitable to exist in a social space where everybody constantly is on their phones. And that is constantly weighing down on you while you're in living in public spaces. So that would be my thing is like forget shame, go observe and observe why it would be so impossible to live without your phone. I think you'll start to answer some questions.
Got it. I like the approach. Yeah. Cool, man. Is there anything else exciting you've got coming up that you'd like to talk about or anything you want to plug?
Well, I plugged it earlier, but definitely this campaign. It's called the Time to Refuse campaign. So like I said, I'm partnering with Jonathan Haidt and the Anxious Generation and the Truth Initiative. So if any of you are familiar, Truth is behind all of the anti-vaping ads that you'll see.
Uh,
It's like the yellow kind of like Truth with the dots uh, the initiative, and they actually work to get cigarettes and tobacco out of, restaurants, hospitals, schools, colleges through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and even today. And so we're partnering with them, the Anxious Generation, and Abstinence, which is um, my friend Gabriella, who is actually graduating at the end of this month from Harvard Graduate School of Education. She started this group Abstinence as a student organization, and she coaches people on how to separate from your smartphone in a sustainable way. And so we are all partnering on this Time to Refuse campaign. And it's kind of similar to the tobacco messaging of Truth, which is, why they're brought in. And then, of course, it's backed by the research of the Anxious Generation. And then Gabrielle and I, because Gabrielle's 24, I'm 22. So we are coming in as the voices of Gen Z. And the whole goal of the campaign is to access Gen Z and to activate Gen Z to see that there are viable options and alternatives to the current wasteland and phone addiction we're experiencing by creating reconnect clubs on campuses and equipping students with a community and tools to, either delete their social media accounts, spend less time on their phone, social media, and experience real world connection in reconnect clubs. So definitely, if you are listening to this and you're going to, a college that doesn't have a reconnect club, then feel free to reach out. Go to reconnectmovement.org and you'll find my email. You'll find the application link to start a reconnect club to become a part of that campaign. That sounds like something that would interest you. If you're a faculty member listening to this, we are also looking for faculty members to help support campuses, clubs on campuses. Um, and then I have a podcast coming out very soon called Be the Oasis. I brought my mom in to be my co-host on it. And so we have some really cool conversations about what oases can look like, what they look like across generations, and what this conversation looks like across generations. That's often where a lot of the disconnect comes from. And yeah, that's probably the two cool things I got going on.
Those are pretty cool things. So if you have links to stuff that people should check out, you can always shoot them my way. I'll add them to the description or whatever, you know. But that's
Awesome.
awesome, man. Well, thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, man. This was a great conversation. You asked some great questions.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Cool. Well, have a great rest of your night. Signing off.